The following conversation is with Xavier Thone of Belgium. He and his father, Joe Thone, have had success at all different distances and in one lofts for many decades. He goes into his family history in the sport, what he's learned from his father, and gives out extremely good advice to new and experienced flyers. I really appreciate Xavier's time. Thank you. All right. Xavier Thone, thank you so much for coming on. I've been looking forward to this. How are you today?
Thank you very much for having me. I was also looking forward to this interview, getting to know you. I hope I will be able to answer all the questions because I'm still the junior, but I've been working with my father for. I'm in the pigeons for 35 years now, and I grew up with it, and I've been working with my father now for the seventh year now, full time, only doing pigeons. Um, Doing very well. Thank you very much. How about yourself?
I'm great. Yeah, we have our young bird season going on right now. We have four more races, so I've been busy with that. But yeah, I wanted to talk to you because as we were saying before we started recording, my dad met your dad, Joe Thone, in late 80s, early 90s. Mike Gannis went to Belgium and took a few guys with him. My dad was one of those guys that went and got to meet your dad. I think he was pretty young at the time, kind of just getting started on his own. He may have been a loft manager for someone before that. But I'll show the picture when I edit this. I'll put the picture up so people can see my dad and your
Hmm.
dad together. I believe they're holding Diego Armando is the name of the
Hmm.
bird, famous
Hmm.
pigeon. So it's cool all these years later for us to be sitting here having a conversation about racing pigeons. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. From what I could see from the picture is that it was taken in the lofts of my grandfather. So the mother of my sorry, the father of my mother, where my father got to know my mother. So there was the time of Diego Armando. It was in the 80s. I think he started there in the 70s. He started there as a 16-year-old, met my mother, and he hasn't been working somewhere else before it. But maybe what you mean is that he also comes from a pigeon family, so his parents were also pigeon fanciers, are still so we are lucky that the parents of so my grandparents, the parents of my father, are still alive. My grandmother is now 88 years old, and she still cleans the loft every morning. She tells people what to do. She's luckily still very fit. So but that's very nice. Yeah, yeah. And I remember that story of Mike Guinness coming to Belgium. That's something that or a story that my father told me before. Yes.
How old is your dad now?
He is 63. 63 if I'm not mistaken. 63. Yes. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he was pretty young back then in the 80s. So that's great. So you really, if your father met your mother because he was managing the loft for her father, so you had no chance you're going to do pigeons when you're of age. You're born in it, it's in your blood, both sides of the
Exactly.
family.
Absolutely. Yeah. My father has always brainwashed me, telling me that pigeons is the best you can do. Um, Even if I would have become a doctor, he would still tell me pigeons is better.
Yeah. So at what point growing up did you decide, I know you've always been around the pigeons. At what point did you decide that you wanted to help continue the legacy of the Thone pigeons and the success that your dad has put together and now you're continuing?
Hmm. That's a good question because I think about that a lot. I have studied and worked in Switzerland for 7 years. So when I was 21, I immigrated to Switzerland. I studied there and I worked there as a pharmaceutical sales representative for the company Johnson and Johnson. Of
Mhm.
course, you know it, the American company. I did it for 4 years, and then um, it was a combination of homesickness and a combination of that brainwashing that my father has always done and telling me like pigeons is the best and you need to come back and it's good and you need to learn from me. So that combination actually took me back to Belgium in 2018. Um, I got thrown into the pigeon sport actually because it was never the plan that I would do it full time. I would come back to Belgium. I would um, continue what I was doing or something else and help my father in the weekends. However, he was very. My father is a very energetic person, and he got the magnificent idea of picking cherries in a high tree. So we have a cherry. We had a cherry tree in the garden, and you already hear it coming. He climb up. He went up the tree several times. Everything went well, but then, of course, all of a sudden he fell down from 6 or 7 meters. I don't know how much it is in inches, but it was quite high. So and that was in the middle of the pigeon season. And long story short, he was very lucky. He was a couple of days in intensive care. He broke his back. He broke everything in his body. So it was a very very intense time because I just returned from Switzerland and I knew nothing about pigeons. Of course, I knew how to handle a pigeon and I knew what the sport was in general, but I still had a lot to learn. We had a loft manager at that time, so that was also good. We had my grandmother who was also working. We missed, I can tell you, only one flight. That was the day that he fell out of the tree. That was the day that we had to basket Saint Vincent, extreme long distance race. We didn't basket that race, but except for that race, we haven't missed any race on any distance ever since. So we raced everything. So it was really I got he fell out of the tree and I got thrown into the cold water.
Yeah, exactly.
uh, so I had to learn everything very quickly. But luckily, of course, after 1 or 2 months, my father recovered well, and then he took on his work again. Um, and since then, he is doing the caretaking of the pigeons. So everything that comes to training the birds, breeding the birds, that is something that he has been doing, and I am taking care of everything around it. So I'm doing the healthcare of the pigeon. I check every day if all the pigeons are healthy. I do the vaccinations. I do all the paperwork. I go basketing, which is quite intensive. So during the season from March to August, we basket 5 days a week. Sorry, 4 days. Some races are combined, but it's quite intensive. So we are with the pigeons from early in the morning until late in the evening when we are in the club. Yes. Um, Now, when in the winter time, there are a lot of exhibitions. So maybe that I will keep it short. Maybe we can go into that later on. But we also have the product range of pigeon health and performance. Something that we're doing. We have our own feed mixture from the company Bayers. Those are also things that I'm doing during the day, promoting the feed, helping people to establish a good system in their lofts. Yeah, that's a little bit how it is structured at the moment.
Yeah, I'd love to get into that because my audience is international, people from all over the world watching, but it ranges from new flyers to very experienced flyers, people who just love pigeons in general, and everyone loves hearing how to properly manage their pigeons. And I think that you can have a great pigeons, you can have great feed, but if they're not healthy, all of that doesn't matter. You have to have them healthy first. So I definitely do want to get into that. Uh,
Hmm.
by the way, I've been all over Europe. Switzerland's probably one of the most beautiful places I've ever been. I'm sure you can agree. The architecture and scenery and just everything. It's a beautiful.
Yeah. The You're probably thinking that I'm crazy to come back to Belgium, but honestly, except for everything, the food is better in Belgium.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I don't think you're crazy. I'm so crazy about pigeons that I think you made the right choice. And you know, I'm in Oklahoma in the U.S. and the United States is such a big country that we are very spread out. So obviously, club racing is getting smaller and smaller, but one
Hmm.
loft is getting bigger and bigger because it
Hmm.
allows you to compete against a lot of pigeons. Where in Belgium you have the ability to compete against thousands and thousands of pigeons and lots of fanciers, and you can get in all these different distances, different clubs. So for someone like myself and a lot of people watching uh, that are obsessed with pigeons, you know, it's fun to see and hear all this about what you all get to do there.
Yeah. Hmm.
One of the
Hmm.
things I like and appreciate about you and your father and your pigeons is you guys seem to play in all of the distances. Am I right about
Hmm.
that?
Yes, exactly.
A lot of guys in Belgium and Holland, they'll specialize in sprint or
Hmm.
they'll specialize in
Yeah.
middle, or maybe they're a Barcelona style, but you guys seem to play in all the distances. And
Hmm.
that's kind of what we do here in America. We have basically from 100 miles to 600 miles, which is 965 kilometers, you know, maximum. We play in those distances, so we need
Hmm.
pigeons that can do it all. And you seem to do that with your line. Is that
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. So there are basically two main reasons why people are specializing in Belgium. First of all, we are a small country, but with huge differences when it comes to the pigeon races, the national races. So you can see that I should probably show you a map, but if you take the map of Belgium, the region where we are close to Germany is about 70 kilometers further for the pigeon to fly than the the west part of Belgium. So the other part of Belgium. So if you
Right,
take the national races with about 350, let's say 350 miles, 400 miles, which will be here as from 500 kilometers.
right,
Um, those are the races where the region in Belgium and the wind plays an extremely important role.
right,
We know in the morning when the pigeons are released in Belgium, everybody knows for like 95% sure where the first national is going to come just because of the wind. And because the wind is also is for us in our region, so the province of Limburg, the wind is actually we need wind coming from the west, but 8 times out of 10 the wind is coming from the east in favor of the other part of Belgium. You see a lot of big names who live there, who race very well on the national races. They are all um, located there in that region of Belgium. Then you have the middle of Belgium, which is also still a very good region. But as far as you go to the east side of Belgium, so the side closest to Germany, it's very unfavorable for us to race national races. So it's very, very difficult. And you need to be an extremely good pigeon fancier um, to do that. What is also important uh, is is the pigeon. But I mentioned before there are two main reasons why people specialize. So it's depending because of this reason it's depending on where you live. You see that a lot of people in this region are getting demotivated because it is very difficult to race the national races in our region. So you see that more and more people are specializing or have been specializing throughout the years in the long distance. So depending on where you live in Belgium, is will also play a major role in what you want to race. And then of course it's sometimes it's a very practical reason. So if people they have jobs and they need to work throughout the day, it's very difficult to play the short distance because you need to train the birds more. A lot more work has to be put on the birds. And if you race the long distance, the extreme long distance, The pigeon gets more important, as they say. Of course, this is very abstract what I say. There is a lot more to that. But
Right.
let's say the pigeon is more important as soon as you go more to the extreme long distance. Um, and the preparation is it's still a lot of work, but the preparation is different. So people who don't have much time throughout the day, they tend to choose for the extreme long distance. So it's the two major reasons is the region, the interest of the people, and the 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 time you have to spend on your pigeons. Yeah.
That makes total sense to me. And here where I live, I really value my club results and my combine results because those are the people in my area. Once we get to our federation, like you said, the wind plays so much more into it.
Hmm.
People are so spread out over the area that I'm in that wind really. So if you win the federation, it's nice, but a lot of times it's has to do with the wind versus the combine and the club here.
Hmm.
You can win, you know, just needing your birds to perform well. Um, do you value more on a national level your section since it is so determined by wind on the national level? Do you look more at,
Hmm.
your area, even though that Western Belgium may have had the day with the wind, in your
Hmm.
area, you still want to know who was the one getting the pigeons in that day, right?
Hmm. Um, it is important for someone if you want to evaluate the or analyze the results in Belgium on the national races. It's very important to understand the position of the people and to understand where the wind was. You can immediately tell from the result where the pigeons came in. So you have a big flock of pigeons coming into the country, and you need to understand that this side of the country, the pigeons, they need to fly further, but first they need to exit the flock, and then they when the other pigeons have practically almost arrived, they still need to fly against the wind to that position. So it's very important here to create a pigeon. That is cultivated to do that and capable of doing that. So you need to cultivate a pigeon which is both faster and stronger. And I think that is a little bit the key to our success also worldwide, because my father was able to cultivate a pigeon, an all-round pigeon, which is both faster and stronger than 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 let's say the majority of I, to stay humble, let's say then the majority of pigeons that they raise in Belgium. Um, this is very important. This is very important. And to come back to your question, it's very important if you analyze the results to understand the position that the people are in and where the wind was. It can also be the other way around. Okay, it happens only 2 to 3 times out of 10, but it can also be the other way around. And if you see that all the pigeons are in one part of Belgium, it doesn't mean that the other ones don't have a good result. Because to give an example, um, we won a first national on the Bourges race in 2021 with Nina. She flew first of 40,000 birds, and she was flying with the wind in favor, with tailwind. But 1 year after, her son flew a first national in the section on the same race, but with headwind. But 15 minutes ahead of the second pigeon. It was an extremely good result. He was
Oh
the
yeah,
fastest of the whole section. If the wind would have been in his favor, there is no doubt that he would have won first national.
absolutely.
But you need to understand the whole story. You need to understand it was with headwind. The pigeons were at the other side of the country. Um, with these circumstances, there was no chance of winning a first national here. But he won the first national in the section. So yes, the section result is very important, and also very important for the motivation of the fanciers. If you take this away, everybody who didn't come into consideration of the national result, well, they might have raced very well, just as I explained in the example. The
Right.
pigeon might have raced very well, but if you don't have results, then you get demotivated, and the people will stop to race.
There we go. Got you back. Yeah, so that's why I think sections are extremely important over there. Like you said, it gives people an understanding of what's going on in their areas, and it's nice to, obviously it's a goal for every fancier there to win a first national. Everybody wants that, but it's more realistic to look into your section and determine how your birds did, right? How your
Mm-hmm.
team did. So that's interesting. Um, do you have a distance that you prefer? Or do you have a distance that you like the best? That you like to? I know you guys play in all distances, but is there something that
Mm-hmm.
you enjoy the most?
For me personally, I enjoy the most the pigeons that I can see coming back on the same day. I hate that I did so much work the whole day, and then you need to wait and wait for a pigeon, which happens in the extreme long distance races. Sometimes you're
Right.
not. Sometimes you don't have a pigeon back on the same day, but it doesn't mean that you will have a bad result. But I like to see pigeons coming
Yeah.
on a
Right.
Saturday morning. If I prepare everything, I like to see pigeons coming. So it's important for me, and I think that that's also important for my father, and I think that's also the reason why he is doing all of the races. A normal Saturday with us is pigeons throughout the day. So in the morning, the short distance birds come. During lunch, the middle distance birds. Then the national races, and then you have the long distance races, and it's quite nice. You can, if you have good weather, you can drink some wine, you can have a barbecue. It's nice seeing pigeons coming the whole day, and I think that's also part of the motivation. Yeah.
Yeah, in America here, specifically in my area, we have an A and a B race. A race would be released at 7:30. B race would be released at 8 in the morning. So there's 30 minutes of separation. So once the birds come in, the race is over.
Hmm.
You
But
get
it would be the same distance.
it'll be the same distance,
Hmm.
just different categories. So the A race is 10 birds maximum. The B race is unlimited. And
Hmm.
so you get two different races, but over there, yeah, you have so many more options, and like you said, your whole day can be pigeons coming in. So that's really exciting and a lot of fun for
Hmm.
sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
What is the morning routine for the birds with you and your father? I know you said he kind of manages the training. What what are you guys doing in the morning to get the birds out? Are we loft flying, road training? Is there a schedule that you
Hmm.
have with that?
Well, in regards to the road training, we only road train the birds that haven't been trained yet. So young birds that start to fly, we start road training them as soon as they have flown 1 hour around the loft, and how can I say, they disappear for a couple of minutes.
Right, routing.
They track and they go away, and then they come back. Then the young birds are ready to road train. Then we start 1 kilometer, 5 kilometer, 10 kilometers. We do it as long as we have good weather. So if the weather is in our favor, we can train the birds up to 50 km in 1 week. And then the pigeons already go to the first club race. So from 50 km, we go straight to 100 km. And then the pigeons go with the club. My father has always, because on the one hand it's too much work to do all by ourselves, but from the other hand he also says people that are just an amateur fancier, like a hobbyist, they don't have the time to do a lot of road training, so we also don't do that to put us on the same level. In the morning, the birds, they have a very strict training schedule because we have a lot of different groups of birds. We have the hens, we have the cocks, we have the first round of young birds, second round of young birds, third round of young birds, fifth round of young birds. So it's very important that we start early in the morning. As soon as the sun comes up, the hens fly 1 hour, they get in. The cocks fly 1 hour, they get in. The first round flies 1 hour, they get in, and so on and so on. So
Right.
that's very important. That's how the day looks in regard to the trainings. Of course, in the beginning of the season, we have some people coming over to get some pigeons, to learn about the products. We have visitors, clients, and we train the birds. And then in the evening, we have the basketing. That's a little bit how a day looks like. Yeah, all day pigeons.
Yeah, all day pigeons. That's the dream. So how many hens, how many cocks are we flying? How many young birds per round is there?
We have about 45 to 50 breeding pairs. So let's say in an ideal round, you have about, let's say, 90 pigeons, young birds. But that would mean that all the eggs are fertile, all
Right.
the pigeons have hatched, and so further and so on. We're still dealing with animals. We are also no magicians, so
Right.
especially in the beginning of the year, when the couples are new, freshly formed, it's still very cold. It might be that a round is not 100% fertile. So let's say we have about 60 to 70 pigeons per round in average. Some pigeons they go to the one loft races. Some pigeons they will be sold or they will be placed in satellite lofts.
Right.
Um, the first time when I go to the club, it's about, let's say, 400 to 500 birds that I will be carrying.
Wow.
Those are all the birds that go on the first race. So all the birds, and then I'm talking only about yearlings and old birds.
Right.
Because the first time when I go into the club, the first round of birds of that year, they are not trained yet to go to the club. So it will be about 400 to 500 yearlings and old birds that we start with, and then we breed about 4 rounds that we will raise of young birds.
And these birds are playing at different distances, different races. That's yeah,
Yes, as
that's
soon
what
as
I'm
as soon as the races get further, the birds will be separated. But
talking
the amount of birds that we raise every week is practically the same until, let's say, the end of June, beginning of July. Um, we start with pausing some birds. When the races are getting further, some birds they stay home 1 week and they
right.
go then the next week to the race. My father takes the pigeon in his hands a lot, a lot of times, and he really analyzes and judges if the pigeon is ready for the race. So we don't just put pigeons into the race. It might be that he decides 5 minutes before the basketing that the pigeon is not ready to go, and then it doesn't go. Then it waits until the next week. Or we put it on a shorter distance. A pigeon that should have gone to the national race might be put to the short distance race just to recover and to be ready for the next week. That's how we try to select and put the pigeons to the races.
And I assume that when he's handling them, he's been holding pigeons his whole life, so he knows when a pigeon's ready and not ready.
Mhm.
Is there a certain way that they feel in his hands or your hands? Is it a
Mhm.
buoyancy? Is it
Yeah,
the color of the skin on the keel? What are
absolutely.
you looking for a pigeon
All
that's
those
ready
things
to go?
all those things play an important role. What is also important is the paperwork. So what has the pigeon done the week before
Hmm.
is also determining if it can go this week to another race. But it's all not exclusive. So you need to take the whole package into consideration. So you need to take the pedigree into consideration. What can the pigeon do on paper?
Right.
What has the pigeon done this season already or the year before, if you're talking about yearlings or old birds? And then you need to judge the pigeon on physical conditions. Like you said, is the muscle there? Is it flexible? Is it agile, ready, motivated, ready to go? That's very important. Is it in good health? um, Something one sentence that is very important and that will come up later if we talk about one loft races. The key to pigeon racing is knowing when to put which pigeon on which moment to which race. You need to be able, or the magic or the key is to know when to put which pigeon where. That's very important. At
So
what time?
right. So we're saying that you determine you analyze the pigeon to determine which race it needs to go to on that day. And what do you think about a pigeon that won a race the week before? Do you give it a week off? Do you think it can repeat? Do you judge it at that point on how it's feeling and looking and motivated?
Yeah. Um, it depends. It depends on the distance, of course. If it won the week before a short distance race, I mean, 90% sure we will. If it's ready, physically ready, we will put it again because it will win again.
Mhm.
If a pigeon has a good momentum, especially in the short distance, then it will be capable of winning several weeks in a row. That happens every year and with every fancier. But for the national races, or as soon as we go further as 300 miles, you need to be careful. First of all, there are regulations. So I don't think unless it changed, I don't think it's possible to put the same pigeon in a national race 2 weeks in a row. There are certain regulations here in Belgium, especially for the long distance. So you need to take that into account, and you need to take into account also the fact that if you have a pigeon that won a race, do you want to jeopardize it, or do you want to keep it and maybe race it to be an ace pigeon, or do you want to be careful and have it for breeding? That's something that you need to consider, especially a fancier that doesn't have a lot of birds or doesn't make a lot of prizes. As soon as you have a first prize winner, maybe you want to keep it for breeding, and to make sure that it's something that the fancier needs to decide as well. It plays an important role.
Yeah, I think that's important for the guys watching that are new to the sport or maybe have only been in it a couple years is, you're just starting out. You need to take a pigeon that wins a race and start to try to build around that pigeon. Whereas you guys there or me here, we have a breeding loft that a pigeon has to be very special to get into the breeding loft. So we want to
Mm-hmm.
see a pigeon excel over some time. Obviously, if a
Mm-hmm.
pigeon wins a national race for you, that might be different. But for the new guys or guys that are, just getting their teams going, if you get a pigeon that performs well,
Mm-hmm.
you're risking a lot by continuing to send it because you never know when an injury can happen or
Mm-hmm.
a bird of prey can come along and catch one. There's a lot of
Yeah,
risk, and you could
absolutely. Mm-hmm.
get 10 youngsters out of that bird in the breeding season versus
Mm-hmm.
continuing to fly it. So it's something
Absolutely.
to consider.
So a very good rule of thumb to pick in on that might be because I get the question a lot: where can we raise the birds? In general, it doesn't mean if you have a long distance bird on the pedigree, it doesn't mean that you only need to focus on the long distance. We do it this way. All the pigeons, they need to start short distance anyway. That's where you start, even with the
Right.
long distance birds, everywhere. You cannot put a long distance bird directly on long distance. That doesn't exist. So we're always talking about building up. If we have a long distance bird that comes well on the middle distance, you keep it there. If it comes back from the race and it's very energetic, very healthy, very motivated, you can race it on a further distance. But if it comes back and it wins the race, then you keep it there. You keep it where it's winning. So of course, there are exceptions where you say, okay, it won this race. It's not exhausted, and it's something that you need to be able to see as a fancier. Um, are you able to see if a pigeon is tired or not? That's something that you need to learn as a fancier. It's important to know that because if a pigeon comes back, it's not tired, you can race it further. So that's a good rule of thumb of where should I race my pigeons.
Well, this is a good transition into products and health because you said, if the pigeon's energetic, obviously when you get your pigeons back from a race, you want them to be able to recover. So what are we
Yeah,
doing? What are you doing to get your pigeons to recover? Is it electrolytes? Is it
yeah,
products in the water? A certain way of feeding?
yes.
How are you feeding to get them
Hmm.
ready for the race and then recovering?
This question, I can talk about it until next week. So this is a question I get a lot, and
Right.
there is no one sentence answer on that. Um, but I can keep it short. So it's important for every fancier to find a good system. You need to find the system that works for you in terms of money, in terms of time consumption, in terms of feasibility. You need to find a system that works. So we use the products of Pigeon Health and Performance, which is a Belgian company that has developed products together with my father. It's a program of 8 to 10 products, not more, but it contains everything that the pigeon need throughout the year. Um, it's very important to understand, just like we people, we don't live on water and bread. If you go jogging, if you play soccer, if you did a lot of studying or thinking, you need energy, you need stuff. So only feed and water alone is not going to get them there. So don't believe that. There are still a lot of conservative fanciers that say, I don't give anything to my pigeons. Either they're lying or they have no clue about what they're doing. That's as simple as that. You need to give high quality feed and high quality products to your pigeons if you want to make a price. And of course, then there is the section of healthcare, so vaccinations, which is also very important, but we're
Right.
not going to elaborate on that for the moment because it's getting too complicated then.
Right.
Um, we have a program which is developed to build up the pigeon from the recovery, like you said, with electrolytes, protein. The next day, they get a product to clean the body, to give to make the airways clean, something for the feathers. We start building up with the protein, with the salts, the minerals, the amino acids for the training again. And then you give them something based on it's very how can I say, it's more complex than that, but to keep it simple, something based on sugar to get them ready for the race. So that is in regard to the products. Also in molting and also in breeding, you need to give products to your pigeons because the pigeon, just like human beings, they need vitamins. They need to molt. They need to the metabolism needs to be working. As the better your metabolism is working, the better you feel. It's the same
Absolutely.
with the pigeon. So it's very important. All those products, they do that. Um, and then we have the feeding. So, like I said before, you need added 3 different pillars. You need to find a system that works in terms of feasibility and in terms of keeping things easy. We have developed a feed together with the company Bayers that we give to all pigeons every day, all year round. It's an all-round feed. It's called Thone Olympique. Um, and it makes it very easy. So if my grandmother feeds the pigeons, if I feed the pigeons, if my father feeds the pigeons, we can all just take that same feed. Um, People are always very surprised because we have long distance, short distance, middle distance birds in the same loft, in the same section. They train together and they also eat together. As soon as the national races start, we will add some fats to this mixture, some more red maize, red corn for the sugar intake and for a higher fat intake. That we do. But the basis stays the same for all pigeons all year round. Um, Talking about a system, this is a very this is a proven system. I have quite some people all around the world um, that use this system, that fly well with it. Um, and it's an easy system.
Yeah.
So this is something that I'm also helping people with. If somebody comes to me and they ask for advice, um, you need to be able to give advice on something that you know. And we know that this system works. So this is a system, of course, that we would recommend. Um, as long as it's available in the country, of course, because
Sure.
with corn, with feed, with mixtures, it's quite difficult sometimes, the export. The products, it's they are available in more than 50 countries already, so that's okay. Um, but that is important. So the people need to understand what they need to give the pigeons, and they need to understand that there is not one magic product that doesn't
Right.
exist.
Right.
When you have the feeling that you have a magic product, it might be a placebo effect, because what happens if you give a new product to the pigeons? Of course, this will work on a short term because they get something that they haven't gotten before. But a magic product still doesn't exist. There are good products on the market. There are very good products on the market, but it's very important to 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 find the correct dosage, not to overdo, and to have a system from bottom up. So you need to start with a healthy pigeon and then you need to build it up. Don't just give one strong product containing a lot of sugar or containing something, I don't know, amino acids or ketamine based, or I don't know what they are using now, because it will work very much on the short term. And sometimes you will also jeopardize your pigeon with giving too much. So it's very important. Find a good system, start from the bottom with healthy pigeons and build it up. That's very important.
Yeah, and one of the things that's different between here in the United States versus what you all have in Belgium is your pigeons will be in the basket much longer than ours. We typically race Saturday and we'll basket Friday evening. Now, uh, if it's a 400-mile race, so about 640 kilometers, I think, we'll basket Thursday. But sometimes the pigeons are in the basket, 3, 4, 5 days, depending on the weather in Belgium, right?
Yes, exactly.
So sometimes you hear Belgian fanciers that feed light to heavy in order to deal with the amount of time in the basket.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
but
very good.
what you're saying, you keep your mixture the same all week.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Very good question. I wanted to say that, but I didn't want to make it too long because I have the tendency of talking too much. But that is something that we don't believe in. It's old-fashioned. Let's
Okay.
say some people might be a little bit agitated if I say that, or maybe provocated. But it's old-fashioned. It's true. Many people still stick to that system. They feed them light up. But what you must understand is it's very unlogical if you do that. If a pigeon comes back from a race and it did an exercise, it needs nutrition to build up again. If you give a pigeon light feed and you have races with tailwind and they come well, people will say, "Yeah, I stick to this system. This works." It's true, it works. But what happens if the pigeon is too motivated or if there is too strong wind? It will fly past your loft and it
Right.
needs to return.
Mm.
Forget about it. Your pigeon, which has gotten only light feed, will not be able, first of all, will it be able to return? And in what shape does it come back if it returns? If it needs to fly much further than it intended to do against the wind, it will be exhausted because it will ask too much for their body and you will be finished for the season. So it's very important to understand the nutritional value of a mixture.
Yeah,
It's super important.
it's other than the basis of health, the nutrition's the most important thing because you don't want a fat, heavy pigeon going to the race, but you also don't want a pigeon that doesn't have any fuel in the tank
Yeah,
to deal with whatever happens that day. Because
yeah,
as you probably know in Belgium, I'm sure it's the same there as here, is that even on a day where it looks like it's a perfect day, there's something going on in the atmosphere that we don't understand that sometimes will make it a tougher day than we think. It's beautiful blue skies, but for some
yeah,
reason So you have to have that balance of, you don't want a heavy
Yeah,
pigeon, but you need a pigeon that's ready for,
exactly.
yeah,
So it's important to play with the quantity, but not with the quality or the nutrition level. You need to give the highest quality, you need to give the highest nutritional value, which doesn't mean that you need to give only fat. No, that's not the essence of giving nutritional value. Um, if you do an exercise, what will you eat? Will you eat a banana, or will you eat a piece of white bread? Uh, the piece of white bread, of course, will give you energy for the short term, just as
right,
light feed with a lot of corn. But if you add peas and if you add protein, this will give you energy for when the real exercise comes, when the muscle
right,
needs to come
right.
into action. And then the question that I get always, it's one of the worst questions that you can ask: how much do I need to give? Well, if you give the same amount of feed to every pigeon every day, I can honestly tell you you're doing something terribly wrong. You are also not eating the same amount every day. If you do an exercise today, you will need to eat a little bit more. If it's very cold outside, the pigeon will tend to eat more. If it's very hot outside, the pigeons, they will automatically eat less. But then it's very important, like we do, for instance, if it's very hot, we give them a second training during the day, especially the cocks. And this is a little inside tip: if we train the cocks in the afternoon when it's very hot, they don't have to fly for 1 hour. It's important that they went outside, because when they come in, they eat. It's important that a pigeon eats, because when it's very hot, they don't want to eat. So that's something that, being a pigeon fancier means keeping all of that into mind. You need to watch, you need to feel, and you need to be able that you see what the pigeon is doing and what it needs. That's being a pigeon fancier.
Yeah, I always tell people, don't put down feed and walk away. You have to watch your pigeons eat, especially your race team. I think it's very important to watch them eat, so you know how much they're eating, what do they need, because they're going to tell you, versus
Yeah,
you just giving a certain amount every time.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly, exactly. It's more important for hens. So the hens, they might be a little bit hungry. So what we try to do is, and when we feed, um, of course, if you do it every day, you will learn very fast what a pigeon will need. Um, and then you can do it very quickly. But the first time or the second time that you do it, you need to really watch on it, like you said. So the hens, they can be a little bit hungry, so they need to finish absolutely everything and be just a little bit hungry, because they tend to listen worse than cocks. And then the cocks, they might leave some paddy rice. So in the mixture, there is 2% paddy rice inside. Paddy rice is light digestible, but it also is easy for the fancier, because it gives an indication if you have fat enough. So if everything is eaten except for a little bit of the paddy rice, you have fat very good. So that's how we did it in the mixture.
Yeah, that makes sense. So what about grit? As far as, are you giving grit as kind of a dessert after feeding, or is it something that's available all the time? How do you go about your grit? Because that's
Yeah,
very important to digest the feed. They need grit, right?
exactly. Grit is available to the pigeons at all times. So we do just the bottom of grit in the feeder, in the same container as we give the feed in. So they
Right.
get it, so they eat it simultaneously.
Yeah, that's
But
that's
that's
very,
very important. Yeah.
yeah,
And then we give the picking stone to the breeding birds. That's also very important, to give picking stone to breeding birds. Else they will start picking on the walls and search the minerals somewhere else.
yeah, and I think that turning the grain the pigeons eat into their energy, the fuel for the body, is very important, and the grit kind of helps do that for them. And
Hmm.
I've had people tell me I only give fresh grit once a week, and I just, that's just not enough, right?
Hmm.
You
Hmm.
have to keep it fresh. At least I,
Um, yeah, we add to it, because they will finish most of it. We add to it, and then if you see that, because we give products on the feed, so the oils and the powders and everything. It will give a little residue in the feeders in the containers. So it's important to keep it dry and clean as well. So every time if we find that it needs to be cleaned, then we clean it and we give fresh grit. Yeah.
Yeah. So whenever it's time for breeding season, do you have a regiment that you do for your breeders? I'm sure you vaccinate, get them cleaned up, ready to go so that they can raise healthy youngsters.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There is a whole schedule behind that. But briefly, if we prepare the pigeons for breeding, they get three things. 6 months before the pairing, they get a vaccination for PMV, paramyxo.
Mm.
About 3 weeks later, they will get a vaccination for paratyphoid, salmonella. We find, so in Belgium, there are a lot of problems with salmonella, but salmonella per se is not always the disease or the bacteria that is causing the disease. So the vaccination is especially important because it boosts the immune system. And it's especially very important for the breeding birds when they are feeding a lot, because the immunity goes down. Then this vaccination helps keeping them healthy later on. And the immunity will go through the egg of the two vaccinations, which will help in the first weeks for the young birds. So then we are 3 weeks before the pairing. So when we gave the salmonella vaccine, the same day we start with the breeding vitamins. Vitabreed from the company Pigeon HP is a breeding vitamin that we're giving to all the breeding birds 3 weeks in advance of the pairing, so daily up to the second egg. As soon as the hens have laid all their eggs, then we go back to 2 times per week. But these breeding vitamins are very important because it contains certain ingredients that will help with the fertility. And
Absolutely.
you can also see that the youngster coming out of the egg, they have less problems with hatching, and they will grow very nicely because these first days, because the fertilization of the egg is the most important, because that's when all the genetics are already inside.
Right.
You cannot do anything later on, so you need to be sure that this is correctly done. The genetics need to be in the egg, because all the rest later means nothing anymore. The pigeon and the capability of the pigeon is already there at that moment, genetically speaking. Of course, you need to keep it healthy and give it the vaccinations and give it the right feed, but you need to be the steps ahead of fertilizing an egg and hatching the egg. This is extremely important, because that's when you put all the genetics in and the yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that one of the things I try to tell people that's very important is vaccination, not only for your breeders, but when your youngsters are born. Once they're of age, we vaccinate with Rota PMV here.
Yeah.
Sickness is a very big problem for people. So if you vaccinate with the Rota PMV and then give them a booster for that, it seems to eliminate a lot of issues.
Absolutely.
And it's
I
just,
can only agree to that.
yeah.
I think the right vaccine is on the market now for 3 years, about 3 years. And I hear from all different sides of Belgium that there are much less problems than before, because rotavirus is a virus that is causing a lot of young bird sickness, because young bird sickness is like a group name of all different types of sicknesses that a young bird can have. But usually this is started by rotavirus. So when we wean the youngsters, we use the PMV rotavirus vaccine, And then 3 weeks after, we give them the paratyphoid vaccine, an inactivated paratyphoid. All the vaccines are inactivated except for the pox vaccine. This is
Right.
this is a live vaccine, of course. Yeah.
And so let's transition into one loft for you. You wanted to go into one loft, and I saw that, you know, that's another thing that you all play in. I know a lot of there are some Belgian fanciers uh, that aren't as into one loft. It's not as big in Belgium, except for a lot of the international races. Like
Mm-hmm.
you said, your parents went to was it South Africa for the Africa Pro?
For the Africa Pro race, yes.
So,
Mm-hmm.
you know, you all
Yeah.
play in one lofts as well. So let's get into one lofts and what do you think about you know, there's a school of thought that some people think that there's a big difference between a one loft pigeon and a pigeon that flies in a club or national race. Do you think there's a big
Yeah.
difference between that kind of pigeon? Because a one loft pigeon is a young bird most of the time,
Mm-hmm.
or there
Yeah.
are races here where they can fly as yearlings, but you need a
Yeah.
pigeon that kind of matures and develops quickly for a one loft. Is there a difference between a one loft bird and a bird you'll fly in your club, or do you think they come from the same source? What are your feelings
Mm-hmm.
on that?
Well, they definitely come from the same source, because where did they get the pigeons for the first one love race?
Right.
I believe I believe that they definitely come from the same source. It's the same pigeon, but you are able to cultivate a pigeon for a specific type of race, same as you are able to cultivate a pigeon for a specific type of racing that you're doing at home. That's what I've explained before. If you are in a difficult position, you will throughout the years you will automatically cultivate by breeding of your winners. That's how you cultivate a pigeon for a specific type of racing. It's only logical if you race and you breed from your winners that it will go upwards. You
Right.
don't breed from your losers, and
Right.
definitely not from the pigeons that you have lost, because that's
Right.
not possible.
Right.
So I race a lot of one loft races because I find it very interesting. I find it very interesting both for myself personally, and of course, commercially, it's very important that you
Sure.
are inside the one loft races. I'm not going to lie about that.
No, yeah, yeah.
What I have noticed is that there is no straight line that you can draw. The most important is that you need to understand that the first 100 pigeons that come back in the final of a one loft race, they're all good pigeons, but please don't come and tell that the others are not good. Because what you cannot influence in a one loft race is what I said before. You cannot put the right pigeon in the right shape at the right time for the right race. So about the one loft racing, so it's important. So at home you can put the pigeon which is in good condition. You can put at the right time in the right race. That is something that you can influence. In a one loft race, you cannot influence at what time a pigeon is motivated or not. You can see that um, many people are telling. I hear from many sides that small hens tend to come back in a hard final. Okay, small hens, they are much easier to motivate and much easier to handle than a large cock. A large cock might need more motivation, more feed, and you don't
Right.
know that.
Right.
So in a one loft race, you cannot influence that. But what I have noticed is that you need a good pigeon, and that um, I don't believe that a good one loft race pigeon will be able to race well in a certain region for the home races, because it has been cultivated for the one loft races. But I have the experience that the other way around does work. So pigeons that our bloodline that have done very well here is also doing very good in the one loft races, because probably, maybe, I don't know, like I said before, we have cultivated a pigeon that needs to be faster and stronger than any other pigeon. This helps in the one loft races. But I also see that there are some strains that tend to do better, but always keep into consideration how many birds of that bloodline have been sent in comparison to birds from another bloodline or from another fancier. Um, you see that there are quite some fanciers that are really focused on one loft races, that send a lot of birds, but are not doing better than a small fancier sending just a small amount of birds. This is something that I've noticed that this is not working. So we have only sent small teams to many types of one loft races, and we're doing very well. So I don't think that you need to send a lot of birds to one race to do that. Of course, if you want to do that, nobody's keeping you from doing that. So if you think that you have more chance, or if you want to have more birds into the sales afterwards, of course, if you have the money, send more birds. But I've noticed that it's not necessarily giving you better results.
That's interesting. And as far as is there, so if you get a winner or a bird that does very well at a one loft, do you, when you bring that bird back, you don't like to, the way it sounds, tell me if I'm wrong, you don't like to necessarily race their pigeons there in Belgium in your club, but you want to send those youngsters back out to one loft.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm trying to do that, but I'm not really. I I think I think that the birds that race in one loft races, I 99% of the birds I don't buy back. Why? Because I think it's a good opportunity for people that are not able to or don't want to spend a lot of money on a Thone bird, that they can buy a Thone bird that has flown well for a cheaper price. So I leave that opportunity to others.
Mhm.
Um, because the one love races we are participating in, sometimes it's a very local sale. For instance, in Poland or in Romania or in Croatia, it's a very local sale, and um, I it's yeah, it gives me a good feeling if I know that the people can get our birds for a decent, I mean, for a lower price.
Sure.
So that's what I tend to do. I tend to keep those pigeons there, and then I'm happy, of course, if they have good references with those birds. Um, but I see from the pedigrees that many one loft race focused people, they sometimes they tend to buy those pigeons back, and those descendants do good on that specific race. And I think that's logic, because then you're cultivating a pigeon for a specific race. I think it's logic if you put two winners from, for instance, the Hoosier race. If you put two winners together, I think it's logic that the children will do good in that race, because the parents have already proven to be able to do that.
Right.
I think that's just very logical breeding. So
Yeah, so I
yeah.
think if someone's goal is just one loft, because a lot of guys in the United States are just one loft because in their area there may not be a club. I think getting the blood that's working at the race that you want to win is important.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah. That's important, but it's also important to get good birds. So that's an experience that I have made. You need to take good birds. And then maybe there is, yeah, it's a little bit of science when you need to vaccinate them and get them ready in a very short period of time, and then it's out of your hands. It's
right.
it's
Yeah,
it's a very different. I wouldn't say it's not pigeon racing, but it's a very, very different type of pigeon fancier being than what we are used to do.
absolutely. Yeah, and we are very fortunate here in the United States to have some of the best one lofts in the world, one loft handlers especially, really guys that have been doing it a long time and have really built up a reputation to take care of the birds and get the most out of them and have good returns on good races. And if a race, a one loft race here in the States, doesn't have good handlers, it's very quickly, uh, people don't participate. So
Yeah.
there are races you can get into with very good handlers, and I wish it was easier for the Belgians, the Germans, the people from the Netherlands to get their birds here to participate in these USA
Hmm.
one lofts, because it'd
Yeah.
be a lot of fun. I think I was talking to Joe and Raf Herbots about this. I think that if the Belgians were able to get their birds here, breeder wise, get them here, and then you'd have to have somebody obviously you'd partner with or somebody you would trust to pair their breeders together the way you would want them paired together, and then send the youngsters out to these one loss. I think that would kind of be the only way for you guys to be able to do it and
Hmm.
feel like you're at a fair, you're have a fair chance, because the quarantine process is so long now that
Yeah.
it's unfair for your birds almost, compared to the
Hmm.
guys that are sending them and then 2 days they're at the race, so
Yeah, it's
it's
quite
something I've
impossible.
thought
Also
about.
too expensive. Hmm.
It's very
Yeah.
expensive. Yeah, yeah,
No, that's true.
yeah.
I'm offering that opportunity to people. So if somebody wants to participate in a one loft race and they don't have breeders themselves, or they don't have the possibility of sending their own birds, then they can have birds from us to send to the races. So I'm offering that opportunity to some people already. Um, so that's a way of helping people participating here in Europe. But the other way around, that's of course difficult. Yeah.
Do you foresee a point in the future where there's a big Belgian one loft race? Because it seems like that is something that I think is inevitable in the future, but is certainly slow moving now.
It's not allowed. So in Belgium, we're not allowed to do one loft race
Do you
because
think
there are
that'll
two.
change in the future?
I don't think so because there will be too much. There will be too much against it. I'm standing neutral to that because I don't have enough knowledge. I need to look into that further. But I think there are too many pigeons in the sky during racing season.
Makes sense.
Belgium is a very small country, and also the pigeons from Holland are coming through, which is sometimes already a problem for us if we have a cross release, that the pigeons, they come into that group, they fly too far, and then you get that problem what I explained before, that the pigeons need to return, especially with headwind causing a lot of problems. So I think it's very very difficult to do that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense. That makes total sense.
Hmm.
Um, what advice do you have to someone? Because, like I told you earlier, there's new flyers, all the way to very experienced flyers listening. But let's talk to new flyers. What advice do you have for someone who in 2024 is just starting out, is trying to figure out what to do? What would you do if you were starting over and you were new? What steps would you take?
Hmm. um it's if I would be in that position, I would search somebody who I trust. It's very important to have, you need to get your pigeons from someone that you trust. Um, I have the experience that many young fanciers that want to start with pigeon racing, they are at the beginning not standing with their feet on the ground. They are not humble enough. So it's very important to stay humble.
Hmm.
It's very important not to think about the money because they want to make money straight away. Um, I don't think I don't think that's good. I think you need, you if you're really passionate about pigeons, you need to be a passionate flyer. You need to focus on the birds, and all the rest comes later. Um, but it's inevitable that you will need a good loft, but it doesn't have to be a new loft. You need to buy the loft according to your capabilities, but make sure that the loft has the right characteristics to raise a bird, in terms of dryness, in terms of not having draft, in terms of having enough air, oxygen, all those things, safety for predator birds, all those things. It doesn't have to be fancy, but it has to be something. It's same with every sport that you will do. If you want to start golf, the better your club is, of course, the better your hit will be.
Right.
That's for sure. But you don't need to start with the best. You can start with something that you have lent. You can start with something that you've bought second hand. That's the same in pigeon racing. Same with the pigeons. So it's the infrastructure is very important. The pigeon is also very important. Um, I have the experience that young fanciers, they want to get a little bit from too many fanciers at a time. Of course, it's nice if you get two pigeons there and two eggs there and three pigeons there. Then you have more pigeons to start with. I understand that, but it will complicate everything. Like I said, you need to have like a buddy, somebody you can trust.
Hmm.
Um, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to invest some money, but do it do it wisely. Do it wisely. Do it with someone you trust. Don't put too much money in one bird. Make sure that you get a correct deal, and then find yourself a system. As soon as you have the loft and the pigeons, find yourself a system. Again, there are so many products on the market. There are so many mixtures on the market. Find something which is from high quality. If you are limited in budget or in finances, don't go for many pigeons of mediocre quality and low quality feed. Go for less pigeons of high quality and take high quality feed. Do it the
Absolutely.
right way, and
Right.
you will have a lot more success very in a shorter period of time. It will motivate you. It will put you on the map, and you will get a lot more joy from it. And
Absolutely.
then automatically you will be able to earn some money back on your investment. But if you start with everything too much from too much sides, mediocre quality, you will still spend a lot of money and you will not be happy in the end.
Yeah. Yeah, and that discourages people, and we need people joining the sport and not leaving the sport.
Exactly,
Sure.
exactly.
Uh, 2024, people can go on Pippa's website. There's a great article with you and your dad. 2024 was a special, unforgettable year for you all. Um, is there any of the pigeons that are extra special that you're looking at as future stars, anything like that?
Um, yes, of course. I think when my father said a super special, unforgettable year, he was mostly referring to the wedding day of my brother.
Oh, okay, okay.
So, emotionally speaking, we got two grandkids in a very short period of time, and my brother got married this year, and then it was also a very good pigeon year. We won several first provincial, first national in the zone prizes. Um, some pigeons that stand out, I think, especially the Nina bloodline. We are, of course, trying to breed as much as possible from that family, to elaborate that family, because we have a lot of confidence in this family. It has already proven itself. The difference between Nina and Sashi in 2012. So Sashi is quite a famous bird. It was our basic bird, or is our basic bird for the middle distance. Um, but when we won first national with Sashi, we still had to breed from her. So it took a lot more years to get her famous and to get her
Sure.
into the family. The brothers and sisters of Nina, that whole family has been doing well already a couple of years before that Nina won the first national. So we are running quite some years ahead now, and we have already a tremendous racing record of that bird, and it's everything which is related to her is just going very well. Um, but I must say as well that not everything was on the bright side. So we had very bad weather this
Right.
year in Belgium. All around
Hmm.
the world, it was a very very bad weather year,
Yeah.
and also some very good birds that were very um, um, promising. They also got lost. So
Yeah.
it was a very hard year for every pigeon fancier as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I had the ace pigeon of my area, my combine. I ended up sending him one too many times. I was gonna stock him, put him in the breeder loft, but I wanted him to fly a 300-mile race before he was put into the breeding loft, and he didn't come back that time. So I think, you got to be careful and make sure that, like I said earlier, if you don't have a lot of champions or really good breeders in your breeder loft, you have to add them. That way, you're not.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah. And you need to make the consideration if you want to jeopardize it or not. You need to you need to think. It's strategically thinking as well. Pigeon racing. Yeah.
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 I was very sick over that for a couple of weeks, and
Hmm.
one more 300 would have been nice, but having 10 youngsters out of him would have been better, right? So it's one
Yeah.
of those
Absolutely.
things. It's tough sometimes. Where can people find your products that you were talking about? Do you have the products here in the States already, United States?
Yes.
Where can they
Yes.
find them if they're interested in that?
Yes. So the importer in the United States is BirdPal. BirdPal. That's the company who's importing. So www.birdpal.com is their website, if I'm not mistaken. Of course, they can always send me a message, send me an email. It's very easy to find if you go to our website. I have a lot of articles where I'm explaining about the products. Um, Different ways are leading to Rome, let's so
Yeah,
to say.
exactly.
I'm also going to the AU convention in Orlando in December. We will
Great.
have a booth there with BirdPal. So if people want to get the products, or if they want to get to know me, or want to get some explanation, that's always a great opportunity to talk pigeon and talk about or strategy or whatever somebody needs. Um, yeah,
That's great. Yeah, have you been to the States before?
I've been to the States before, but not for pigeons.
Okay, well, you're gonna have a lot of fun.
Visited New York and then Las Vegas, and
Oh
so yeah,
yeah, Vegas. Yeah,
LA. Yeah,
get in some trouble in Vegas, right?
yeah.
No, Orlando's, you're going to enjoy it. It's going to be great. Great. That'll be a great event. I would love to be there myself. My wife and I just had our first child, and so it's hard for me.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. It's hard for me to get away to get down there this time, but
Hard to sleep.
yeah, yeah.
I
If
know what it
something,
is.
yeah,
I
yeah, if
know what
something
it is.
changes, then I'd love
Yeah,
to see you down there. But
absolutely.
next time I come to Belgium, I'll have to come and meet you in person and meet your father, and that'd be a lot of fun. So. Uh,
Very nice.
yeah. What's the website that you have that people can go to?
So it will be Thone.be. So THONE.be. That's our website. I don't know if this is clear, like this.
Yep, there it is. Perfect. Has email on there, info@thone.be. Perfect. All right.
So there will be also an auction that we are organizing with Big Andy in Brooksville. Will be on the 9th of December. If anybody wants some information about that, that's also a great opportunity to talk to me or to get to know the products, because I will be there to give the explanation about the products, about anything what the people need. Or of course, if they want pigeons, then that would be also an opportunity to obtain them. Um, so yeah, I hope many people are coming to the AU convention. I don't know how it works in the United States, if many people are coming there or not.
I think it'll be well attended. People love Florida, obviously, and the
Mhm.
convention's a lot of fun. That's one of the things in the United States people enjoy about One Lofts is being able to travel and meet
Yeah.
people and see old friends and stuff. And that's definitely one of the
Mhm.
benefits for me is going and seeing that. But you also have an auction going on Pippa right now, right?
Exactly. Yes.
Okay. So people can check that out on Pippa's
Yeah.
website.
So we do in the beginning of every auction season, so to say. So as from September, they call it an auction season. We always select the best youngsters from our breeders. So there is like one youngster or a little bit of everything is inside the auction. We always do it around beginning of October. Um, so there is one more auction coming in January, which will be focused specifically on the Nina birds, which will be a much smaller auction. But this auction is something which has a little bit of everything. We had quite some nice references in the last 2 3 weeks. coming in from the One Loft races. And luckily, there is at least one bird related to every of these references in the auction. So yeah, I would invite everybody to check it out. If there are any questions, they can always contact me.
And not only do you all play every distance, but I was looking at the auction. You have birds of all colors too. You have grizzles
Yeah,
and splash,
yeah,
everything. So there's something for everybody, and that's really neat because some guys only like blue bars and blue checks, or
yeah, yeah.
so you guys have it all, and that's a lot of fun. So I
It's a coincidence. Sorry
go
to
ahead,
interrupt
go
you.
ahead, go ahead.
It's a coincidence. I mean, we never look at the color first. The results are most important
Sure,
for us. Um, it's important to consider the whole handling of a bird. So um, it's of course I understand um, if somebody's new into the sport and you're looking to buy a bird from somebody else, you need to consider certain characteristics in order to judge the bird,
right.
because that's the only hold on that you have. Um, that's why I said always it's very important to trust the fence here, because people tend to always go for a specific type of bird. Some people, they want to have a white feather here, or a white feather on the feet, or they want only like super strong vent bones, and they want to have curved breeding feathers, and there are all kinds of things that people have invented just to judge a bird. Um, but I think the only thing which will really tell you if a bird is good are the results.
Results. Yeah,
And to avoid to buy something that doesn't work is just to trust the fancier that you buy from, because a pigeon that is a little bit open is not necessarily a bad pigeon. A pigeon that has a yellow eye is not necessarily worse than one with a white eye. It's so many characteristics. Of course, they will help you, but a good pigeon is still the one that proves itself in the basket. So
absolutely. And there's only a handful that we breed every year that are going to be your superstars.
absolutely,
You're not going
absolutely,
to breed 100 champions. It just doesn't exist, right? So
no,
you
no,
have to be selective and let the basket tell you. So
absolutely, very important.
Xavier, I could talk to you all day. You're one of the guys that I could just talk pigeons with all day. But I know you're busy. You have a lot on your plate right now with your dad out of town and everything. So I'm going to let you go for now. I think we need to have you back on at some point in the future and keep talking pigeons. So,
With pleasure, with pleasure,
but
with pleasure.
please tell
Would
your
be
father
nice.
hello. Show him that picture. I'm sure he probably doesn't remember that long ago, but he'll probably remember the Mike Gannis trip that he brought some guys over. My dad was a part
He
of that.
did remember, honestly speaking. I sent him this picture, and he remembered. My father remembers a lot of things. So
That's
so
good. Yeah.
yeah.
I
Say
told
say
Yeah.
yeah.
I told
Best
my dad
regards
that I
back.
was going to have you on, so that was exciting for him too, because all these years later to see it come full circle.
Is he planning to come back to Belgium, or are you planning to come to
Maybe,
Belgium?
maybe in the future. I was recently there, and well, I'm going to hopefully come back in 2025 or six. So I'm
Hmm.
going to be back.
Yeah.
So when I come back, I'll come visit you and your dad and meet you
Welcome.
in person.
Would be nice.
Yeah.
Would be
So,
nice.
but
First,
my dad
focus on the
hopefully.
baby.
Yeah, for focusing on the baby for now. Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
lot of work, as you know. But
Absolutely. Absolutely.
uh, I'm gonna let you go. The last question I like to ask people: do you have a favorite moment with the pigeons that sticks out to you as your favorite moment that you'll never forget?
Um, I think one of uh, there are many moments that can be related to pigeons, because we have traveled the world, and it was always because of the pigeons. So I can take it very far, and I can say there are many moments because everything we do is thanks to the pigeons, and always because of the pigeons. Every travel that we made, everything that we do is always because of the pigeons in this family. Um, Maybe the most memorable moment was that we've released 40 about 40 birds at our wedding 3 years ago. That was very nice, something that not everybody can have, because not
Sure.
everybody, of course, has pigeons. That was very memorable. um, Maybe the most memorable thing until now will probably be the visit of the vice president of China in 2009. That was quite fascinating. That he visited our family 1 week before he went to Obama.
Oh, wow.
So it was that was something maybe that stood out for us for many years. It's still quite interesting. Yeah. My,
So
my
he,
my father has seen some and has received many, yeah, high standing people because of the pigeons. That's quite interesting. Yeah. Also Prince Faisal from Saudi Arabia,
right.
he met. So pigeons brings you somewhere. It's a small world.
Yeah, it's incredible. It lets you, without the pigeons, you and I wouldn't be talking, and there's people all over the world going to be watching that. Uh, one of the things I really appreciate about you coming on here is that there are guys that will never get to go to Belgium and meet you, but watching this is going to give them, an idea of who you are and what you all
Mhm.
represent and the success you've had for decades and decades. So, thank
Mhm.
you again so much, Xavier, for coming on,
Thank you so much.
and yeah, we'll do this again, and please enjoy yourself in Orlando. And if you want to go see Xavier and get the products, the Thone products, and talk about pigeons and get something from them, they can meet you at the convention. They can go on the website. We've covered all that. So thank you again. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it as well.